Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is brought to you by Thanks, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thanks.com, that's THANKZ.com, with the subject line of Founder's Life for preferred pricing. Now, I'm joined today by Scott Leff. Scott, thanks for joining. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, great to be here, Leo. Thanks for having me. My name is Scott. I run Leff, which is a B2B content marketing agency. We serve primarily global consulting firms and other B2B companies, and based in Chicago, but with employees across Europe as well.
Excellent. Would you like to talk a little more about your journey that brought you to where you are today, and then a little more about the current business, sort of, what the customers look like, what you're doing for them, etc.?
Sure. And I think like most entrepreneurs, I didn't have a plan to get into this. The opportunity presented itself. I got my start in business publishing with McKinsey Company, working as eventually managing editor of the McKinsey Quarterly. I left McKinsey to go work at Chicago's Olympic bid. The city was trying to get the 2016 Olympics. We didn't. Rio got it. They were better at bribery than Chicago was, which is ironic. And after that ended, I think I was casting about for what was next. And my wife said, "Why don't you just try freelancing? You're a writer and editor. I know companies will hire you." And, so I started doing that. And it was probably a couple years of feeling my way through the fog, trying to understand how to talk about what I did, what companies would hire me for. And over the course of that time, I got busy enough that I brought on a partner and then incrementally built from there. So we're 16 years into the journey now. We are about 28 people. And it's been interesting. Again, like most entrepreneurs will attest, it's not a straight line. And there are lots of listening, lots of connecting the dots, trying to understand what clients want and how you can adjust to give them solutions.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And it's, the path is rarely on purpose with entrepreneurs. People have a habit of falling into things. It's spotting the opportunities.
Yeah, well, and I think anyone who's been around for a few years can look back at some attempts they made where they thought this was going to be a big offering, didn't go anywhere. But you need those experiences, right? Because at the least, you're developing that test and learn muscle. At best, you're figuring out how to put the pieces together in a different way that might be marketable.
Very true. And tell us how family looks for you.
Family? Yeah, married with 2 kids, 21 and 19. So that's been an interesting journey. Anyone with kids will agree that watching them learn, grow, and develop is a humbling experience, but also enriching because you can't help but go back to your own experiences and think about where you were at that time, how you developed, what you learned along the way. So give a lot of thought to how to gently guide, be a resource for them without solving their problems myself, because that's not how people develop and grow in the long run.
True. We've always believed in sort of treating our kids like adults as much as possible, letting them make the mistakes.
Yeah, my wife and I agreed that it was important for them to make mistakes and fail when it didn't really matter, which is, sometimes even through high school. You have to go through those times. And if parents are always there to catch you before you fall, then again, you just don't develop those muscles, the resilience, the grit to figure out for yourself.
Yeah, I think I wrote a blog the other day talking about, we learn more from failure than we do success.
It's true. And I think most of us can. I don't know what your batting average is for success to failure, or how you define failure. I think hopefully I'm batting at least 500, but you don't know from time to time, depending on how you define success.
As a non-American, I get what you're talking about, but I haven't got a clue if 500 is good or bad.
But if you're
what's it out of?
Yeah, in baseballs. If you're
I get that, but what's it out of? What's is there a
500 out of 1,000? So that's okay. 50-50, which if you're failing half the time, I guess you can say you're learning half the time if you want to be optimistic about it.
Yeah, I think we anyone who thinks an entrepreneurial path is easy and all success is either lucky beyond all belief, or it's just waiting for the failure that's about to come. Because it's a roller coaster. It's hopefully a fun roller coaster in the end, but it's definitely a roller coaster.
Well, I know you've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'd be interested to get your opinion on what drove most people to become entrepreneurs. If it was the opportunity was staring them in the face, they couldn't avoid it, and so they had to plow forward, or if they had an experience that made them think, yeah, I can do this. But how would you describe most people's inspiration for going out on their own?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think anyone who says they're going to becoming an entrepreneur to make money, that's a mistake. Because, like I always say to young entrepreneurs or to high school students when I'm talking to them, it's you'll probably make more money getting a job. Now, hopefully long term, you'll make more as an entrepreneur and you'll have more fun, but certainly in the short or medium term, you'll make more with a job. So, I think entrepreneurs come from a number of different places, but I think a lot of it is a bit like you said, which is almost falling into it. Like, there isn't a business plan behind it. It's more you're seeing an opportunity, and that then becomes a business that you build upon.
Right. And I think for me, I knew that there were a couple of things that I was good at. I didn't know if I could run a business, but I knew I could write and I could edit. And so some of those skills that you need to actually be successful in a business come to you incrementally as the business grows. You always wish that you could acquire them faster or right on time when you faced a certain challenge. But I think that's heartening for people who want to go down this path. You don't have to know everything, have it all figured out, have all the experiences, because every day is going to throw something new at you. And I think the main skill you need to have is just being ready to respond and figure it out.
Yes, I think ducking and diving or pivoting is, whatever form that takes. I think but that is the entrepreneurial journey, which is you're spotting an opportunity. It may not be the same opportunity that you had originally. You suddenly say, that's a great opportunity, I'm going to go that direction. That's, that is the journey. It's finding, those opportunities, those little diamonds in the rough as you go along the road.
One of the main points in the development of our agency, as I said, we started out mainly writing and editing. We added some design capacity, but a friend from the Olympic bids said, he worked at a large consulting firm. He said, we're getting ready we want to do some videos around the Olympic movement. Can you do video production? And we hadn't before, right? But as an entrepreneur, the rule is say yes and figure it out. And hopefully you don't get too far beyond your capabilities so that you're letting the client down. But in this case, we were able to pull a production team together, created the videos. The client was really happy. And then that has led to a 12-year relationship with this client where we do lots of video every year, everything from more modest productions to 10 or 12 person crews, more soundstage, not quite Michael Bay or Spielberg, but ambitious productions. And so had we not said yes and figured it out 12 years ago, we would never be in that place now.
Yeah, I think, and what you said, sort of, saying yes when the client asked, I think in the end, with a lot of things, unless you've got a really, really focused business, I often say to my business partner, it's a yes to most things, unless it's a definite no. Yeah. I mean, there's some things you're like, this just is not a fit for us. We can't add value here. Okay. But if it's slightly off from what you do, well, okay, you know what? We can adapt, and if that's a good client, and, a 12-year client is definitely a good client.
Right. But we also, there have been times we've said yes and then gotten in the middle of a project and thought, how are we going to get out of this? And one was we were asked to do an ambitious online survey that had lots of different options. It was almost like a choose-your-own-journey survey, and the output was an auto-generated PDF, which at the time, now that doesn't seem like that big a deal, but 6-8 years ago, there was lots of coding involved, lots of figuring out a platform, lots of working with a client, trying to manage their expectations, and we eventually got to a great place, and the client was happy, but it's still one of the least profitable projects we've ever done, and we haven't done another one. In part, we'd love to take another one on, but it was it's such an uncomfortable feeling when you realize we are in a place and we don't quite know how to move forward. And you don't want to disappoint the client. You don't want to be in those situations where you're not making money on a project all the time. So it was a valuable learning experience.
Yeah. I think that's true, and I think it's the other thing that wasn't one of those clients, but the other thing I think comes with experience is not being afraid to say no to the wrong client, or not being afraid to fire clients. I've definitely fired clients that fall into the when you're doing the no arsehole rule. There's definitely some that fall into the other side of that, and you're like, life's too short.
Yeah, definitely been in that situation, and it's difficult because when you start out as an entrepreneur, if the rule is say yes and figure it out, that means that you're not saying no to much. And at a certain point, you can't say yes to everything and define yourself in the market. Saying no to a client that is difficult to deal with, or firing them is that next step. That's tough too. We've gotten better at it, but it's never easy, and it's hard to know where's the line. At what point have we crossed to a point where this relationship is really no longer good for us or the client? And it's a little bit like relationships generally, right?
Yeah, and it's never easy, but at some point, if you don't want to deal with a client, you're probably not the right fit for them, so you're actually doing them a favour as well. So you may not be doing the next person a favour who they become a client of, tell us what sort of health looks like for you. So mental health, physical health, nutrition, fitness, however that looks for you.
When it comes to physical health, it's a huge part of my regular routine, whether it's running, stationary bike, some kind of exercise. We're sitting in a chair 8-10 hours a day, so you got to move. And I also find it meditative, and sometimes solutions to those problems that you've been trying to solve over the course of the day come to you when you're exercising right after, so it's also important for that. For mental health, I come from a people whose general approach to mental health is push it down. And I should probably spend some time on the couch, but I'm not going to, at least right now. I feel like I love what I do. I don't expect it to be easy. I don't expect there to be an infinite amount of time to do everything you want to do. So I'm fine with the choices, and I feel like in some of the interactions we've had with our employees when they're having difficulty with clients, it often comes down to that feeling of helplessness or lack of agency. And it's a terrible place to be. I've been on client projects or in jobs where you feel like you're being asked for things, you don't understand how it fits in, you want to ask questions, you don't feel like you can. That's a terrible place to be, and I feel like that is a huge contributor to challenges with mental health or well-being, just because we need agency in our lives. We need to be able to make those choices and feel like have some kind of control. And when you don't have that, I feel like some of the other things compound.
And what do you like to do for fun?
I was a musician in a former life, and so music is everything to me. At this office, we have a turntable and 600 records here. We're playing music all day. I play music on the side, so I'm producing a monthly acoustic concert series, a very intimate kind of gathering. Think Tiny Desk concert, something like that. And then going to see music, traveling a bit. I was just in Memphis recently, making the pilgrimage to one of the great U.S. music cities. Those are the things that end up recharging the battery when work starts to become a bit oppressive.
I love that. And how about, so, obviously recharging the battery, but if you look at that sort of balance, that center line on a balanced life, how do you find that you balance between the different aspects of work, family, health, and having some fun?
I don't pretend to do a very good job of it, really. And I think it's a challenge, particularly after the pandemic, when those lines between work and life blurred. Initially, when we were working from our homes, that was a challenge. And so, as an entrepreneur also, the work is never really done, right? You could, if you wanted to work around the clock, you could. And so it's easier now that the kids are grown, and I don't feel like I'm not neglecting them by spending time on work. But I think it's, for all of us, you have to make choices. You can't do it all. I don't watch a lot of Netflix, for instance. Binging TV isn't my thing, but that's not something I miss. For others, that's how they recharge their batteries. So I feel like, again, coming back to agency, if you're thoughtful about how you want to spend the 24 hours of the day, each day, and get done what you need to, find some time for yourself. I think that can look different for everyone, but I feel like I said, I know I could do better, but I'm maintaining. I'm feeling all right.
Excellent. That's all you can ask for. And what has been a pivotal moment in your life?
Trying to think. There are a couple of times early on that in sports, in playing music, that were huge failures. In a somewhat public way, where it felt like the whole world was watching and you didn't quite meet the moment. As traumatic as those were at the time, I think they gave me, I don't want to say a fearlessness, but a willingness to do some of the challenging things, not be afraid of failing. And I think we talked earlier about testing and learning, being okay with failure. That's a muscle. And when you know that the worst that can happen is really not that bad, then it makes it easier to charge forward. How about for yourself?
For me, I don't know. I mean, I've had sort of probably a few pivotal moments, and I look at it as chapters. I'm doing a book at the moment, but, the different chapters in my life, whether it be, I got married young, my first business actually was as a teenager, whether it be there was a big tech business which I founded with my brother. That was definitely a pivotal moment, and the learnings that came from building one of the market leaders across UK, Germany, Sweden and France in 2.5 years. Moving to America, 2010, with my family, I sort of moved halfway around the world again. Pivotal, and so many different opportunities, especially for my kids. And another pivotal moment is the COVID and the relationship with the kids, and then the chapter I'm on now as a sort of digital nomad, and as I sort of move forward to the next stage of my life. Now my kids have left home, so I think for me those pivotal moments are chapters, and there've definitely been a few. And there'll hopefully be more. I'm enjoying the journey, wherever it takes me.
Your answer was much better. Can I have a do-over? I want to give you another pivotal moment. I want to give you a more positive one.
It's whatever. People, I find, there's a whole mix people give, and I love that. It's one of those questions that, it's whatever comes to mind. It's hopefully not a prepared one.
Yeah, well, and it was nice hearing you go through the series of pivotal moments and realize that it's not as if you get to an age and your pivotal moments are over. There can always be another one around the bend that changes the path forward, creates some new opportunities. You don't know it at the time, but in looking back, it was a really meaningful thing that happened.
Yeah, I think life's a journey, and I definitely embrace that journey. It'll have lots of twists and turns, and that's fine with me. You never know what'll come. What's one piece of advice you'd give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
I think the biggest thing, as I look back at my own journey, is you tend to feel that you're the only one that's ever gone through this, that the problems you have are unique to your venture, which couldn't be further from the truth. And so the best thing that you can do, and the thing I wish I would have done more, particularly early on, was reach out to people who'd been in that situation and get their advice. Because I always used to think that, there's no blueprint for what we're doing here. Actually, there is. Lots of people have done it already, and they can help you and save you some time. I guess in the age of ChatGPT, you could just put it into the bot, but it's also helpful to talk with people, have that group of entrepreneurs, advisors, friends, whatever you'd want to call them, to talk through these things, because that's also a process, and it's a little bit of therapy, and it can make you feel much better that you're not alone in this journey and that others have been there before.
That's very true. The other thing I think to add to exactly what you're saying, which is people are happy to help. I mean, for example, I've had 100 plus people on the podcast, and every single person when I've asked that question has said, reach out to me, happy to chat. So that's my next question is, how can people find you?
Well, you can find us at leftcommunications.com, on LinkedIn and other places. If any aspiring entrepreneurs want to talk, I'm always around. I've benefited so much from the generosity of others, so I want to repay the favor. But we're out there. We're at conferences and other things, and hoping to continue to move the company forward.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and please leave a review.